stick could have been something with a little bit of more consistency and accountability.
Nice. No, I was
Yeah,
just thinking
thanks.
that actually. Um, I don't know. Yeah, with that project, that was like we were like really pushing really hard, but I don't like when I look back, I don't feel like we really like got too much done in terms of like we put out the magazine, which was amazing, but
Mm-hmm.
outside of that, like the promotion was all very random and sporadic, and like it would happen like maybe once every 6 months that you'd get that we get something solid together again, or that's what it feels like when I look back.
Yeah, yeah, it was kind of this sprint mentality. Like I feel just making the magazine took a lot of work, and then in terms of promotion, to me, the idea or the strategy we had behind it of making this, um, character that's engaging in social media like an internet guru was like hilarious and funny and was a good idea, but then it just wasn't consistent. Like it just wasn't consistent enough for people to get the joke.
Yeah, that's exactly it. We didn't do it enough for it to really be a cohesive idea. It
Yeah.
was just a little too scattered, but it was pretty awesome. Like project, fun to do for
Mm-hmm.
sure. And I learned like tons during that time.
Oh shit!
From
Yeah.
like talking about accountability. Um, like what happened to make me think of like that as a topic was this this art show that I'm doing.
Okay. Yeah, the one that's coming up with like the table or something, or
Yeah, well, it's like a ticket commitment that you
yeah.
have to do, and we'd actually like had tried to maybe do this before, or like brought the idea up when like doing a show, and never
Okay.
really did it that way. But where you have to, you give people uh, uh, amount of tickets to sell, and if they don't sell them, they cover the cost
Mm-hmm.
basically of the tickets.
Yeah.
And but anyways, I was like kind of reading up on it. I was like freaking out because everybody's like, "Oh man, this is like a pyramid scheme." But I was just reading the headlines of Google. Like I wasn't diving into it, and it just like caught me off guard because like I don't know. I guess I'm not confident enough to know what like my choice in this because like I kind of had this a little bit of a voice in the back of my head with this event. Like I don't know, am I gonna sell the tickets? Like
Mm-hmm.
if I don't, like then I gotta pay or whatever. Just like kind of a nagging feeling. But anyways, so then like yeah, I seen this, I'm like kind of freaking out, and then I end up talking to Tara about it and like thinking about it a little more realistically, and like I think and it comes down to why is that information even out there? Why are people even saying this?
Mm-hmm.
And basically, I think in my eyes, what I kind of came to terms with is like because they tell you the whole step of the way. Look, this is what we're gonna do. You have to sell the tickets. You click like, and they ask you again, like, "Hey, are you sure you want to do this or whatever kind of thing?"
Yeah.
And I think that came from this like this backlash because that was like a couple years ago that those all those like I don't know, this is a pyramid scheme or it's a scam or whatever
Mm-hmm.
articles were popping up, and so I think they might have made some changes to it to make it more or less, I don't know, scammy feeling, I guess. I don't really know
Mm-hmm.
how to uh, describe that side of it exactly, but basically what I came to the conclusion of was that I think like people probably signed up for it and ended up leaving with like a kind of a bad feeling because they didn't get what they expected out of it.
Mm-hmm.
Like they probably signed up thinking they're going to sell these tickets, and then maybe they didn't, and then they go to the thing and they don't sell any of their art and they're down in the hole, and it's like, so then they want to blame this company when I don't really think it's the company's, like they're telling you everything along the way, every step, what you got to do. They're trying to be helpful too with it. And like me now, from everything we've learned, I'm just like thinking, well, this is like a risk that I'm taking. It's my own risk that I'm deciding to take, and so I got to be accountable for anything that comes of that risk. And so I don't know. I think I just see that attitude a lot in the arts, and where
Mm-hmm.
it's like, you owe me. It's almost a bit of entitlement, and Like, but it's just if you approach it kind of in a more like business type of way, which I think you have to nowadays. You can see that it's just, if anything, if it doesn't go well, it's just a bad business transaction, and you invest elsewhere. Like, it's a learning experience. It's so many different things, but definitely not a pyramid scheme. Or unnecessarily. I wouldn't even say it's a scam, to be honest, because that would suggest that they're lying or something, but they're totally upfront about the deal. So
Yeah, like telling you one thing and then switching it. And
I just want to say, I will say one more thing though. I think
go.
that they could benefit from is a little more transparency, and then you wouldn't have that, like, okay, this is where the money's going, this is what we're doing with it. Kind of like that might help them kind of counteract that. The attitude that's out there.
So what do you think this show is doing right?
Well, it's like, it's kind of like, I guess, to me, it's just doing something that a lot of the other ones don't do, and to give you that option to sell tickets.
Mm-hmm.
Like, because like realistically, if I sold all tickets, I'd have a table at an event, and I wouldn't necessarily had to pay. I had to put in the work
Mm-hmm.
to do it. So I guess in a way you do pay, but like for me, I like that, to have that option. Whereas like if I wanted to go to Art Walk or whatever, usually I have to pay for a table or a spot, or even like a lot of these other craft markets, which I think are positive. I just think this also is like an opportunity for maybe somebody that thinks they can sell the tickets to partake in, because like that's part of it. Like if you don't think you can sell the tickets, or you don't want to pay the money, then I probably wouldn't be a part of it. But I think if you're willing to take the hit, because like they do also give you a second event in another city you can attend without the ticket obligation.
Oh, cool.
So like if you were to let's say even sell 10 tickets, right?
Yeah.
Then like that's pretty doable. Then you're paying $200 for a table one night, and then nothing the next night. That's like a couple months down the road. That's $100 a night for a table, which is like relatively cheap in terms of like art markets. So they're kind of making it a collaborative thing, and so it is like kind of dependent on who's there and who sells tickets. But at the end of the day, I think it's just nice to have that option, because now I've got everything set up to do shows in the future and like to do other markets. It just like kind of was for me a push to do it, because I had this obligation. So I had to really try and see if it was for me, or maybe I want to do like just a market where you just pay for a table. So yeah, I think in that sense they're just doing it a little bit different approach, but
yeah, and sorry, go.
No, go ahead. That's it. I've talked lots about it, so I'd love to hear what you have to say.
Yeah, well, like, yeah, like, I agree with a lot of that, right? Like, and I can also, like, understand why people would, like, look at that and be like, oh, what a pyramid scheme. Because there's an element of that that's, like, similar to those, like, Battle of the Band events that used to be, like, big back in Edmonton and, like, the old age scene when we were growing up. But like at the same time, I think like the tickets like encourages the artist to bring people out. And I think, yeah, like what's resonating with me that you're saying is you've made this decision and to be accountable to it, and that there's nobody to blame there, right? It would be one thing if you agree to something and then like that's what you were told is like not what you agreed with. And the thing that like I've been learning from you like recently, like not so much with the art, but just like life, and I think that trickles into art, is like being like honest and just having conversations and like asking the questions and making sure you're like not making assumptions and everybody's like on the same page before you commit to a decision. But the other part of that though is that, and we've experienced this too, is that it's a whole lot easier to blame somebody else or some outside force than to take responsibility and look at yourself and maybe realize that your work isn't good or like where it needs to be, or you made a bad decision, or you're not promoting your stuff the correct way, so people don't care about it.
Mm-hmm. Did I lose you?
No, I'm still here.
Oh, sorry. Yeah, I don't know. It's an interesting thing, what that can do for your art too, because like, well, both the negative and the positive. The negative, where you look at it like all of a sudden you miss any opportunity to connect, because it might just be one person that you end up that really likes your art, but they really like it. And that's like the big thing is, like, for me with this event is, there are a lot of different artists and from a lot of different parts of the city, and so different styles, all that. So like I figure the crowd is going to be quite diverse as well, and it'll allow me to maybe meet some people in the city that might like my art that I haven't yet. So I think now that, yeah, you say that, that would be the positive, and then the negative is you just lose those interactions. You don't even take the time to notice them. So, because if you're in that kind of shit mentality, so I guess that's the best way I can describe it. It's really hard to see any of that stuff. So, and then it just like totally kills my determination and drive. So, to try and like see the best in any situation is, and sometimes that is like, oh, I made a mistake. I joined a pyramid scheme, and I gotta take the fall for that. But I mean, I don't think it's the case here.
No, like,
it's just so funny that when I see it freaked me out. I'm like, I was like to Tara, I was like, I've been duped. Like, I was so convinced, like, just because I don't know, I was starting to lose a little bit of confidence then that when I read that, like, with being ready for it and everything, and it just like, but just saying that out loud was like enough to be like, wait a second, but no, there's something more to this. Like,
yeah, but like, even if it was like a sketchy scenario that you went into, right? I think you can take the like, be accountable to that decision and to make the best out of it, right? So you know, like with this, regardless of people dig the art or not, it's like an opportunity to connect and meet other like artists, and I think a lot of times, like, there's a ripple effect. I think when you put a bunch of artists in the room together, just interesting things happen. But this idea of accountability is critical in the art racket, because it's tough, right? As like an artist, and if you're somebody who wants to take like the creative pursuits and develop it into a career, like, you need to be accountable to it. Like, you need to be a professional, and you don't have a boss or any exterior motivator that's making you show up to do the work. So it's really easy to slip and like not to be accountable for the process. And I think if you're lacking that accountability, then you're just not going to be able to do anything.
Yeah, also, like, I mean, I think I've been kind of talking about it in the business kind of side or business terms, but even just to like make the art a reality, or to be able to continually make art, you need that accountability, or else, because like you never get, I feel like I've never made something that I'm like, yeah, this is it, I'm done. No, I always want to make something just that much more refined, and not necessarily perfect, but just like finding my style, or kind of, it can be anything. And I find when I'm it's like if you were to make something that wasn't up to your standards, that's like something you have to be accountable for. It's like, you got to recognize, it's not up to what I expect out of myself, but that doesn't mean I can't go again and make it better. Like I've drawn certain drawings 3 or 4 times before I get it right. And it's like, that's where for me, I need to hold myself like, hey, just don't stop. This is inside of you. You can get it out. It's just going to take maybe a little bit longer.
So do you like refuse to send out like art if it's not like up to your standards?
Well, there is like a balance in that, I guess, where you have to, if you're too far one way, it never gets out there. And that's kind of where I've been. And so like certain things, yes. Like if it's just like, a lot of times where I would struggle was like that refining stage where it's actually not, it doesn't drain you creatively. It's just like, it's kind of like the last boring step or whatever, but it adds that much more to it. If I'm cutting that out, I'm usually disappointed with the work. But now what I do is I'll like, if I'm not happy with something, I'll scan it in and throw it in Photoshop, drop the levels or drop like the transparency and print it out and then redraw it. And for me, that's like, it's not that much more work to do that, but it really like it takes the pressure off because I know I got it scanned in. If I screw anything up, I can do it again. And for me, I found like that's how I approach it is I guess like just making sure I take that extra step to kind of finish it, I suppose. Because like even my paintings, before the show, I was like looking at them and none of the edges are cleaned up, and like every one of them wasn't signed, and so.
Did the show already happen?
No, sorry, but like in preparation for it, I've been doing a bunch of things, and I was just kind of looking at my stuff and something didn't feel right. Like it I wasn't ready to release them out in the world. And that's almost what it is. It's like taking care of, like I'd done these works that I put a lot into, but I wasn't willing to like, throw a little bit extra into them, make them before I set them out into the world, And so, just like
I don't think you should be sending out garbage, but I think, well, sometimes we just get fixated on the work, and I think the work is only like part of it, that we have to run through the whole scope, which is creating and then sending it out. And my stance on it is like the art happens when the work interacts with an audience, and if the work's not going out, then it's not art because it's like missing that. And I think often it's, we get the work to a point where it's 90%, complete or perfect, and then we spend so much time on that last 10%. And in my opinion, that last 10% just doesn't really matter. It's kind of these micro details that only you are going to pick up on, where like the typical like audience or somebody that's more interested in, is this work resonating with me on an emotional level, doesn't necessarily care. Like, you know what I mean by that, or?
No, I do. I do. And like, I guess like, you can't let it stop you from putting out the work, because at the end of the day, when I found that the only way I found that 10% and found it fast is by showing it to people, right? So like I think the 10% comes later, I suppose. Like I think I'm ready for that 10% because I've done everything for the show already. Like I organized it so I could do it, because I've known so many times from showing, Art Walk or well, that's really, and then, like some bands we'd have events with, we'd show the art, and like it was those moments that I learned how to do that 10% and confidently do the 10% where I wasn't it was just like, it's just, I just knew. And so I did it and then it's done. But yeah, if it's to stop it from going out, that's definitely not, I don't think, it doesn't help your art grow if it's not being viewed by people, I think.
No,
Is
and
that maybe what you're thinking there?
yeah, it's that.
Too?
It's when that last bit of polish gets in the way of sending it out, and when the work goes out and you're running the whole, I guess, race or whatever, like you learn a lot more. So with Chump, compared to other projects that we've done, there was like the fact that we just started off with like that email list and having that going out like regularly, and then you're getting feedback and it's able to interact with the audience, and then there's this like accountability because now people are interested in what you're doing, so you want to keep putting out stuff and meeting their expectations, and then through that process, like the work's getting stronger compared to if we just locked ourselves away and like worked on putting out a book. Like I feel that the book is stronger because we went through that process of, you know, a year or whatever, putting out the work in little bits and having it like interact with an audience and refine itself.
Yeah, no, actually, I definitely 100% agree. And like, especially with Chump, that was like, if we didn't do all those little steps, like, we wouldn't know what it is. And, you know, sometimes even, you know, we try different projects within the project, and kind of as you do that, you see more and more what you want it to be, where you get fulfillment, where you don't get fulfillment, and what reacts well with your audience. And yeah, you just learn it kind of takes shape in those periods by doing that. So yeah, I think it's really important to show your work for sure. And
For sure.
And get feedback on it. And,
well, and what are your thoughts on like being accountable to an audience?
Like what they have to say about the art, or is that what you mean?
Yeah, or just like delivering on what you're promising.
Oh yeah, okay. Yeah, because once you have an audience, then you have people that you have to, well, they've invested in you, and you want to give them back their investment, I guess. In it's like a business way of looking at it, but essentially, like for me, anybody that likes my art now, that's a blessing. So I want to help that person, and you know, or give back to that person. And so I think for me, that's like how I look at it. Before, I don't know even how I looked at it. I didn't even really like selling my art, to be honest. I think because I didn't understand the transaction that was happening, or in a way, like it felt kind of weird. Whereas now I look at it a little differently. And but yeah, I think it's just, there's a lot of value in even just having that support, whether or not they buy your product or just, you know, like your stuff. It helps. Every little bit helps. So I think you gotta recognize that. So
and I really liked what you said about like investing, like an audience like investing in you. Like, you know, like sometimes they buy your art and that's great, but then also just like that investment of attention, right? Because you're being bombarded by so much stuff, and like so many people are yelling at you and like demanding their attention, and then you have like Netflix and like HBO producing all this stuff, and you know, all the great American novels or whatever. So there's just like plenty of places where somebody's attention can be going, and then if somebody's choosing to pay attention to you, I think as a creative you want like to make a return on that investment of like attention, right? So that, you know, you're giving them value back, or something about your art is resonating with them and bringing them some type of like emotional like experience that has been worth the attention. And I think like something that maybe we haven't necessarily been the best at is when people start paying attention to you as being like showing up regularly. Yeah, like being like accountable to that, you know, instead of being like, oh yeah, we're going to be sending this email out every 2 weeks, or like whatever these commitments are that we've made in the past, and then you do it once and then you just stop.
Yeah, essentially, well, it's kind of like you're just trying in any like relationship. I feel like it kind of comes down to trust and like building that trust. And
Mm-hmm.
I don't know. I don't even like, honestly, the more I do this stuff, it's not even about the money or anything. Like it never really was. I really know now that it's not about that, and it's just about kind of having building relationships with people, and you know, if doors open up, that's great. If not, it's still within the interaction itself. That's you can take a lot from that. So
Yeah.
um,
Well, and even if you're
eh,
just resonating with one person, but I really dig what you said there about trust, right? Like I'm reading that Seth Godin's new book, and there's um chapter 18 or something. Like he goes on this riff about trust. Now we're like living in like a society where we're more connected than ever before, but there's like trust is becoming endangered, or like he wrote it, like we're more connected but less trusting. And I think like that's really interesting. And as like you're creative, right? Like you get told that you need to get attention and like steal attention and like run Instagram bots, or you know, purchase Facebook ads, and to interrupt people and try to grab their attention to like jam your art down their throat. But what seems to be, I guess, like working, or like what's more important is, yeah, like developing that trust with somebody, right? Like building that relationship. And I think if you like look at it, um maybe this isn't a good analogy, but like similar to like how you go about building a loving relationship with somebody,
no,
right? Like
I
it.
mean, I think like, yeah, it's like any relationship you have. You kind of, you know, your boss, between a boss and employee, you need trust, or else it's just like, yeah, I don't think it works. And it's just
But like how
uh,
how do you develop trust?
well, I think for one, it's like just be honest. Like if you can't send that email or whatever, like maybe make people aware of as to why, or you know, just being open with because I think in this day and age it is so fast. And you know, but as you know, like anything, as much as you can, try to do your best in you know, kind of like it's like I was just thinking, like, could you imagine if you went into Best Buy and they're like and they like, and you didn't, I go into Best Buy, I know what I'm getting, I know, you know, if I buy this I can return it in 14 days.
Mm-hmm.
Like, you know, there's all these things that they've set up to just like make that transaction as, you know, safe feeling as possible, which is kind of like I guess like it's marketing, and that side of marketing can feel kind of gross and weird, especially when it's like from a big corporation.
Mm-hmm.
But that's essentially what they're doing. Is just like trying to build your trust, so that you will buy stuff from them. And as like an artist, I find, because I don't really like value money the same way as a giant corporation would, that trust is there for just like my own personal fulfillment in life. And so I think if what you're looking for is to build relationships, then you have to be honest about that. But if what you're looking for is to make money, then you have to be honest about that too. And then like whatever you're doing, it's just a matter of like not kind of like if you were to say you're going to send an email and not automatically, that's like, I'm going to be like, does this guy really want to like work with me? Is he, you know what I mean? Like these doubts will come into. So I think like most people know what would create that doubt just from their own personal experiences. So kind of following like, you first have to overcome your own fear to send the email, because that's usually what it is. I feel for myself, it's like, I'm afraid what this person's going to think,
but like,
so I'm not going to do it.
Yeah.
and then actually do the opposite of what I'm trying to achieve, which is, you know, I want to build, you know, some sort of relationship with, you know, the people that like my work, or, you know, like me, that's a different relationship. That's like a friendship, but, you know, so that's kind of how I see it. It is almost like a lover or a friend, or, you know, your mom. You got to make sure you call your mom, or else, you know, she's gonna get worried and come up with ideas as to why you're not calling. And
Yeah,
you know, this is not speaking from personal experience at all whatsoever.
a little bit.
Just kidding, it is. But, I don't know. It's weird because it's like, you know, business crosses over with all these other things, and
but yes, like with that, so it's like when people start talking about like business, like things in business terms, like there seems like there's this like greasy like feeling around that. And I also think sometimes people use the term it's just business to like justify being like an asshole, right? Like I had this landlord one time, and whatever, there was this thing, and then like he wrote this note that was like, oh yeah, it's just business. It's like, right, because it's just business, you're allowed to run around and like screw other humans. But I think like as a creative, or like anything really, like if your approach to business is from a place of honesty and like integrity and bringing like value into the world and trying to leave things off better than they were, then there's nothing wrong with that. And I think as a creative that you're wanting to pursue like a career like within the arts, that you have to like, there's components of that of like having to look at it like in business terms, and like not to be like a Wolf of Wall Street capitalist and, you know, to like pour poison into the river because it's cheaper like that way. But yeah, but it, so then like you touched on that idea of fear, like do you think sometimes what prevents us from shipping the work is like that fear? Because like I don't think it's like a time management issue for us. I think we get like excited by ideas sometimes, and then when it comes time to deliver, there's like something that gets in the way.
Yeah, I haven't figured out what that is, because it still kind of happens, but for the most part I just like do the opposite of what I was used to doing, and then that helps a bit. But yeah, that is definitely like, okay, so with this like show or whatever,
Yeah.
I'm like, I quit drinking, so I haven't really seen a lot of people, and you know, because like as you would when you know, that's what a lot of people like to do, and
Yeah.
so I couldn't really, but now I got this show, and I'm like, oh man, I should invite some people, and I'm like, yeah, but you haven't seen them in like 7 months. They're gonna think you're just fucking some skis ball trying to sell them some tickets, like, like just going. You know, my brain's just going and going, and it's just like, well, first of all, I don't know that, and if they did, well, then they did, but I don't have control over that. And at the end of the day, I think they'd probably be excited to, you know, if someone reached out to me, and at the end of the day, nothing bad can come from that, even if that is the result. At least then you know, and you know you can figure it out. But I don't think that's the case anyways. That's just like, that's one of the things that happens to me, is like I just assume the worst and then don't do it. So actually another thing, this is like something that I actually did to counteract that was So I submitted this beer label for Big Word
Oh yeah, I
Plastic.
saw that. That was slick.
Yeah, and so they have, they did that, and they're doing a lot of art stuff. It's all in their like
Yeah,
big studio.
I like
They
those
have like
guys.
a, yeah, it's a really cool idea too. And actually, they'd sent, it was kind of like a generalized email. So, but it was like, hey, we might want some artists in residence for some of the beer companies. Like they were looking for that, I guess.
Oh,
And they're like, let us know, and we'll pass your information along. And so I'm like, oh, well, is it? I'm trying to like figure out what an artist in residence is because I don't
okay,
even know what
yeah.
the hell that was. And it's like, well, it sounds like you have to go to the place and work there for a bit or something. I guess I didn't know the details,
Yeah.
but I was trying so hard to figure them out, and it was stopping me from sending this email. And then I'm like, well, so I asked you what it was, but I sent the email before I got your answer.
Good call.
I just said, yeah, sure, just pass my information along because then I can find out the details and I can decide when it happens if it's something that I want to do. But if I had never even just said, like that could have potentially stopped me from sending something as simple as just pass my information along.
Yeah, it's
Whereas like, and so there's shit like that happens, and I've been doing the opposite, and it's been helping
well,
quite a bit
and it
actually.
seems like a little bit like that seems like a little bit wild, right? Like I know like what you're talking about, right? It's like you start like overthinking stuff, and I think there's this aspect of being human, like self doubt or being anxious or like that type of feeling that probably served a really good purpose like back in the day when, you know, if you walked in the wrong direction you could have got like smoked by a grizzly bear or something like that. So like I think it serves a purpose, but like in like our society there's like really no danger. Like what's going to happen if you send that email out? It's not like they're going to show up at the door and be like, you're a piece of shit, and like kick the you know, like beat you up or whatever.
Yeah. I think if I were to say yes and then not do it, that would be really bad. But at this point, like it can only be really bad as I'm now not accountable. But to just say I'm interested and then find out and be honest. But always, if they reach out to me and I were to not send anything because it didn't meet my criteria in life, like I couldn't live there or whatever for the time being, and I just don't respond. Like that's something I would do. That's why I'm saying it. It's like, but to be honest and say, you know, this is a really cool opportunity, but I can't do it right now, or maybe I can. I don't really know yet. But if that were to happen, then at least they know that, you know, I've built a relationship with them. They trust me because I'm honest with them and like not hiding anything. So they might reach out in the future when there is a opportunity for me. You never know. Like it's a lot to do with like just being easy on yourself. Cause like if I don't send those emails, they sit in the back of my brain and just like eat away at it. So
yeah, and then you're like waking up at like 3 a.m. and breaking out into a cold sweat. Oh, and it's true. Or yeah, or that time where it's like somebody hits you up about something and then you like whatever don't want to do it or can't do it, but like you don't want to say no, so you just don't say anything, and then it just nags at you, like drives you mad until I don't know, you lose it.
yeah, exactly. So that's what I kind of feel is like, just like making sure you're on top of those things so that for yourself, they don't eat away at you. And then also so that people, you know, don't have, you know, you know that people out there don't have that itch in the back of their head either, I guess, regarding something. And I'm sure there are people out there to this day from stuff we worked on that have that. And so, and that's, I guess, like, if anybody's out there, I'm sorry. But